My name is Miss Beida, and today we're going to be talking about the ACT English test. You've probably already heard about the ACT. The ACT stands for American College Testing, and it's one of the two tests that you can take to get into college. The other test is the SAT. The ACT test has 4 subjects: English, reading, math, and science, and then there's also an optional writing test. Your ACT score is only going to take into account the questions that you answer correctly. You're not penalized for incorrect answers. That means that you should try and answer every single question and not leave any questions blank. The ACT English test is broken down into 5 passages. Each passage is about 300 words, more or less, and then each passage comes with 15 questions. Your time limit for this test is 45 minutes. That sounds like a lot to do, 75 questions in 45 minutes, but we're gonna talk about strategies that will help you out and make it not seem so daunting. So don't be overwhelmed, you're gonna be just fine. The passages for the English test can be about pretty much anything. It's not like the reading test where it's usually about humanities or natural sciences. The English passages can be about whatever topic, and it can really be any style of writing. So what concepts show up on the ACT English test? Well, some of the concepts that you'll see are grammar, sentence structure, punctuation, strategy, organization, and lastly, style. Let's talk about some useful strategies that you can use to conquer the ACT English test. So the first thing that's really important for doing well on the English test is knowing the anatomy of a question. So that just means knowing what all makes up a question. Like I mentioned before, there's going to be 5 passages, and then each passage is going to have 15 questions. So it's really good to do each section at a time so that everything that you read within the passage is still fresh in your mind while you're answering the questions. One nice thing is that the order of the questions follows the passage. So you can kind of read along and answer the questions along, knowing that you don't have to read the entire thing before you go and answer the first question. You don't need to, and actually you probably shouldn't. It's also important to be familiar with the notation that we see in the English test. The passages are filled with underlined portions, and those underlined portions are sections of the passage that might have a mistake. So as you read the passage and you approach an underlined portion, keep in mind if it sounds correct. That's really going to help you out, because most likely when you do go and read the question, it's going to be asking about that mistake that you already spotted. When you see numbers in a box, that means that that entire sentence or the entire paragraph that's next to that box has a question that's asking about the whole thing. You may also see numbers in brackets, and those will also be used to indicate sentences or full paragraphs. The next important strategy to keep in mind is pacing. So because you have 5 passages to do in 45 minutes, that means that you have about 9 minutes to spend per passage. A really common question to ask when talking about pacing with the ACT English test is it better to spend a little bit longer on the passage that you're working on, or is it better to skip or guess on the last few questions so that you get to read every single one and get a shot at answering every question? The recommended answer for that is actually the second option. And the reason why is because people usually recommend that if a question is taking you a long time just because it's really challenging, then usually that time is better well spent working on other questions that might be a little bit easier that you could answer faster, and then you can just guess on the questions that are more challenging. But at the end of the day, everybody's different, and you need to do what works well for you. The last strategy we have for the ACT English test is to create a game plan. Because you don't have very much time to do so much, then you need to go in there ready to go. There are no seconds to be wasted at the beginning of the question. So because of that, the first part of creating your game plan is to make sure you don't waste time reading directions. You should already be familiar with the directions by the time you get to the ACT, and you're not going to waste any time reading those. You're going to go straight to the first passage and start on the questions. The next thing that's a part of your plan is to do the passages in order. For some of the other ACT sections, people recommend mixing up the order and doing what you're better at first. Because ACT English test passages can be about literally anything, then there's no point in trying to personalize the order in which you do them. When you do the passages, remember that it's probably not the best use of your time to read the entire passage and then go back to the first question. What you should be doing is reading and answering the questions as you go. By the time you're done reading the passage, you've already answered the majority of the questions, and then you might have just a couple at the end that are asking about, overall messages and overall tone and things like that. Another thing to keep in mind is don't be afraid to choose the no change option. A lot of the times they're going to ask you about an underlined portion, whether or not it has a mistake or not, and it might not have a mistake. And if that's the case, then the answer is going to be no change, which is usually an option. And last but not least is make educated guesses. Always answer all of the questions if you can, even if it's just taking the last 10 seconds to just guess and pick whatever answer. You're still giving yourself a better shot than you would be if you were to leave it blank. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you feel a little bit more confident about taking your ACT after this session. I'll see you next time.